Hello, this is Betamax80, again with my complete lack of editing capability. So what I've done is I've angled the webcam down to what I'm trying to show you today. And this is the classy table and towel trick which I've seen other YouTube creators use in tech videos in the early days, and the early days is where I am now. This is really a follow-up to the unboxing of the motherboard, the AMD A-series motherboard with the computer, the CPU on the board, which I opened in an earlier video. I wanted to show you what it's turned into and give you a tour of the computer now it's been fully built. I'm really pleased with it, by the way. Remember that this was a £305 computer build, and it has absolutely stormed Windows 10, and any game or application or web application I have thrown at it, including full screen 1080p 60Hz video, and all kinds of goodness really. So I'm going to take you through it as to what that computer has become on the basis of that really well priced AMD A-series integrated CPU and motherboard. First of all, look at the size of this. I'm really pleased with this. So this is a Mini-ITX system, and I wanted to really make the most of the form factor and get a true Mini-ITX case, and I think this is a superb example of such a thing. This is from Amazon. It cost approximately £56, I believe. It actually cost more than the motherboard by about £4, believe it or not. Really unobtrusive design. I think it's very classy actually. It can be mounted either in a desktop configuration or in a tower configuration. This bracket here can literally be unscrewed by hand. Which way is it? Open. He says, yes, there we are. Comes off. So you have a tower configuration with that mount, a desktop configuration with that mount, or this also becomes a Visa mount for a monitor. So you use the desktop part of the connector and this screws onto the back of a Visa compliant monitor or monitor arms. I think is very clever. I wanted this to be as slim as possible and as unobtrusive as possible due to my limited desk space, so I have gone for the tower configuration. I'm going to put this back on the base now. Very simple. As I say, you can do this by hand, which is great. And it can become a desktop in just a few seconds. So, again, the front of the system. Yeah. See, I've used a slim DVD-ROM drive here. DVD rewriter, sorry. These only cost £16. This is a light-on slim DVD rewriter. It's the same kind of thing that's found in laptop computers. There's a special connector for these, but this case actually included the correct power and data connector for this drive anyway. So it has a space for this. I added this for £16. It has an SD card reader, which is here. This was actually supplied with the case. It's not the classiest SD card reader. You have to actually grab the card yourself to take it out, but you know what? It works. Here we are. It's not classy, it's functional, but you know what? It provides extra storage, which is always nice with an SSD based system. So on the top here, as well as a nice mesh grille which gives lots of ventilation for the processor portion, which is great because this is a passively cooled motherboard, remember. You also have a power button, very unobtrusive power button. There's a power indicator on the front, the power button's just on the top next to it. There is a hard disk light in that section. There's a little black section which has a hard disk light as well. You have USB 2 and front audio connectors. So you have all the kind of expansion that you would want from a case that has everything on board. You have the card reader, you have the front audio and the front USB 2, which is everything you'd really want a case itself to provide, I think. Limited ventilation. This is where I've actually added 2 Noctua fans. I was hoping for a completely passive system, but it was getting to heat levels I wasn't happy with, and that's just due, I think, to slightly optimistic passive cooling solution on the motherboard. I think that ASRock have been slightly optimistic possibly. The size of the case might be another factor, but I really wanted to make the use of this Mini-ITX form factor and really show it off to its best capabilities. So I've purchased 2 Noctua fans. They're so quiet, they provide maybe, I don't know. Well, I've done a measurement on them, and you're talking between 40 and 45 decibels for the whole system. It's extremely quiet, and it's quieter than anything else that might be running in your own home. We come to the back. There's cutouts for things that this board doesn't supply, but I like this board for what it is. It's simple, it's basic, it's great. The case actually supplied a cable and a connector for eSATA, external SATA. This board doesn't have enough SATA sockets to actually support that, so what I've done is I've just taken the connector out. I think it's cleaner to have nothing and have no extra cables in the case than it would be to leave everything as it was. It's in the box. If I need it, if I change the board, then I can. Obviously the board came with a cutout, so everything's as it should be. I'm just going to sit down a sec for this part just to show off. Okay, the power supply is a 120 watt power supply. It actually came with the case. This is an in-wing case, by the way. They're a reasonable case manufacturer. They're sort of middle of the road, a known brand. They're kind of like the Acer of case manufacturers. They're not the most amazing. They're no Corsair. They're no Fractal Design, but they are reliable, and reliable is good enough for me, I think, with this system. So it came included with a 120 watt power supply. I've discovered that the outlet for this power supply, the fan I should say, is actually on the bottom, which is quite weird, but it seems to work well enough. You have some cooling there. This is just some ventilation for the drives, which I'll show you in a moment. This is a 2-layer case, which is something I really like for buildability. So the board, let's get this the right way around. Here we are. The board comes with a PS2 connector, which is something I like. It's something a bit unusual. 2 USB 2s, serial port, VGA port, HDMI, graphics port, 2 USB 3 ports. These are the only USB 3 ports on the case, but 2 is fair enough, I think, for this price of system. 2 more USB 2 ports, so you've got a total of 6 USB 2 ports, including the 2 on the front of the case, which there is a connector for. And the 2 USB 3 ports. You have a gigabit Ethernet, which is your standard Realtek thing, and you have some onboard audio, which is the standard Realtek thing, but thanks to ASRock, who make a big thing of their isolated audio, this is actually a well implemented version of the Realtek audio. I actually don't mind this, and it takes a lot for me to say I don't mind Realtek audio. I'm not a fan generally, but I'm really pleased with this. I'm going to open the case now. I'll open the board side first. Now this does actually come with screws on here. There we are, they're tiny screws, but they don't have to be used. This has a very nice little locking mechanism so that you can actually leave the screws off and everything locks into place and then just slides off when you need it. So I'm going to do that now. I've taken the screws off. Very easy access, which is good. You can fiddle. Good for a tinkerer. Yeah, good for a tinker. Right, so it's a simple board. I've neatened everything up as much as possible. It's perhaps not as clean and wonderful as some really expensive builds, but I've done the level best with what's been provided. There are 2 4-pin connectors on this power supply that this board doesn't use. I think that this whole case was possibly designed around an Intel Atom type system, but you know what, it suits this board very well. A lot of the features of this case are utilized by this board. There's nothing that this board supports other than the PCI Express 16 slot, which isn't usable due to the height of the case. There's nothing else on this board that I can't utilise within this case, which is important. It's important to maximise what's available to you, I think. So we have the APU under here. So this is your AMD A4-5000 with built-in built-in AMD Radeon HD400 graphics. So basically it's 8000 series graphics, which is a modern enough chipset, and I believe it comes under the R5 banner nowadays, but this is slightly older and identifies as the 8000 series. Nothing wrong with it, very capable. 2 GB available with it. Does share memory, but I've got 16 GB in here of good crucial ballistics tactical memory. I'm trying to show you the sides here. There we are. It's low profile memory, not necessary, but suits this board well. Good for calling. What else have we got? I've added a PC speaker. This is part of what I bought from Amazon. So you've got a PC speaker for post messages. It's quite useful to have if you're a bit of a tinkerer yourself. You know what's going on with the BIOS. Quite nice. I've actually added the official ASRock TPM card, which is tiny and does actually fit in this case profile, which is great because Windows 10 loves to have a TPM, which is a trusted platform module, if at all possible. What else is there to talk to you about in here? I think that's all the extras. That's the great thing about it. It's a very simple build. Oh, the fans. Can you see them? There we are. 2 Noctua fans. So they're 2 40mm Noctua fans. I know that this one's not exactly on the level, but it's kind of sorted itself out because the cable has to run in front of the other one, and the two have kind of settled down in this position. They work very well. I'm not thrilled about the fact I've had to use mounting tape to attach them to the case, but they do their job really well. They cool the CPU and they cool the case. There's only 2 fan headers on the motherboard anyway, so I'm making the most of, again, what's available on the board. It's made a difference of about 15 degrees centigrade, so I'm really pleased with the fans. They're £10.99 each, so £22. They're all factored into my £305 build, and yeah, look at how compact it is. The board is literally the size of the chassis, apart from the power supply, which I'm very happy with because I wanted to show off and make the most of the Micro-ITX form factor. Where are the drives, you might say? Well, I'm going to show you now. I'm just putting the board side panel back, and this side reveals the drive cages. This is what I like about this case. It's so simple to build in. It's a bit of a struggle to get the motherboard in, actually, to be honest with you, because it literally did just fit the case. Every cable had to be moved out of the base so much, but other than that, it went in very easily. So I have a Radeon R3 240GB SSD in here. 240 gigabytes was basically what I could afford. This is around a £50 option at the moment. The speed is more than ample for the processor that it's attached to. I've learnt on many YouTube videos that the A series APUs do like to have an SSD to drive. It makes a huge difference to them as opposed to a normal hard disk, so I was happy to use an SSD. The AMD Radeon models are actually a really good price. It's weird having an ATI Radeon SSD because they're supposed to be graphics cards, but AMD have produced quite a lot of co-branded components recently. The idea is that it sort of relates to the power of the graphics they're attached to. This is a really well-priced option, around £50, as I say, 240 gigabytes, which is a very average, reasonable, not tight, not amazingly generous option, the way things are priced at the moment in late 2016. So I'm really pleased with it. It does the job perfectly. I can't argue. It's solid, it's quiet, it's cool running. There's nothing wrong with it. In here, I'm not going to unscrew this part, but you actually can reverse this. The way this case is designed initially is that the tray is open, just like this drive cage here, that they are actually secured in. It's designed specifically for 2.5-inch drive. There's actually a little cage here and a little retention system here as well. I'd see that the webcam's just zoomed in. I didn't know it did that. It's quite cool. So this has a DVD rewriter in here. It's a Lite-On model. It looks just like the model you would find in a laptop. So it has the little cutout and then this section. As I said, it has a mini ODD connector, which I believe is an extension of a SATA cable. So it actually has that built into the case. So as I say, this case provides really everything I need for this build. I'm really pleased with it. Yeah, and the board provides SATA 3, so you're talking about 6 gigabytes per second theoretically. So both of these components, yeah, are totally designed for that, and it's a really good build from my point of view. I'm really pleased with it. I love the way that it's separated as well. You've got a little through hole. Your only connection from the bottom to the top of the case is through that little through hole there. That's where all the cables are being fed. So it's really neat. You've got some cable management room down here if you really need it. You can't really put the main power cables that you saw through that space, but the data cables, the drive cables are here. The manufacturer suggests that you could also use this space for a second SSD, but it's a compromise. You either have your second SSD drive or you have your optical drive. This board only has 2 SATA connectors because it's based on a mobile platform processor, so I made the most of it. I've got an SSD and an optical drive. As I say, you could have 2 SSDs. It doesn't support RAID. That's the other thing about this particular processor. It doesn't have a RAID module on it, but honestly, I don't think it was necessary. I don't think that Mini-ITX is what you use if you want to use a RAID configuration of disks anyway. So that's it. I just wanted to show you everything. Very pleased with this build, as I say, £305. Straightforward. Took some time and some shopping for some of the components to actually work together. I wanted to use a Wi-Fi card. Found I couldn't do that, but I'm quite happy using a £15 Wi-Fi dongle picked up from Argos. Works extremely well, fits in the back. I've got 8 USB ports to choose from, so using one up with a wireless module for AC isn't a problem, and I understand that built-in Wi-Fi modules are often not that great anyway. The last thing to show you is my my Poundland screwdriver set. I'm really impressed with this. It actually has 8 different bits to it. I think that BigClive.com uses this, something very similar. And yes, it cost £1. It's in the DIY section of Poundland. It's not in the computer section. I think they call it a technology screwdriver, but I'm really impressed. It's magnetic. Change the bits really easily. It's just a magnetised end. Really, really useful in building a computer, especially one this size that needs smaller size screw heads. See, this one has a small Phillips, for example, and it has hex keys and that kind of thing. Really pleased with this. Just wanted to show you around the completed board. The performance is excellent. It does boot Windows 10 in less than 5 seconds, which is sort of what I was hoping for. And yeah, works extremely well. Everything works really well together. Okay, bye.